Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Daryl. Welcome back to this channel. In previous lessons, we just learned how to create these two interactive controls to control the indicators and also strategies. In these lessons, what we're going to do is to use these interactive controls to decide what we would like to show in this main chart. And specifically, what we're going to do is to use the interactive control to decide whether or not we would like to show the moving average, exponential moving average, and also Bollinger Band. So let's go ahead and get started. The first things that I need to do is to create a compute and plot technical analysis functions under these animate functions. And then the first things that I need to do is to create these functions, which is right below this show animate status, show EMA status, and show Bollinger Band status, which is this is how we got the status from the interactive control. And then we will use these booleans to help us to decide what we would like to show in the main chart. And there are few arguments that I need to pass on into this compute plot technical analysis functions. That includes the axis that we would like to work with, and that also includes the data. And then we would like to use these status to decide whether or not we would like to show the moving average and the exponential moving average, and also the Bollinger Band. And this is the exponential moving average. And finally, that is the Bollinger Band. One additional functionality or features that I would like to do, or I would like to add here, is that I would like to decide which periods that we would like to use for the moving average or for the exponential moving average, and also which moving average or standard deviations that we would like to use the Bollinger Band. So that is the flexibility that I would like to add over here. So in that case, I would like to add a list as the input argument for the moving average, say 5, 10, 12 over here. And of course you can change, or of course these functions should allow us to change these lists to or the periods to whatever we want. But at this point, I will just put the 5, 10, 20 over here. And then for the exponential moving average, say for example, I might want to, again, I can provide a list over here, and for these times I would just put one numbers over here. But of course, these functions should allow us to capture a different exponential moving average as well. And then finally, for the Bollinger Band, and we need to define two things. The first is the moving average, that is the middle line in between the upper Bollinger Bands and also the lower Bollinger Bands. And then we also would like to provide the standard deviations to create the boundaries. In that case, I will just use 20 periods with 2 standard deviations. And again, this is just the default value for this Bollinger Band. And of course, you can just change to whatever you want. So quick recaps for these functions. What we need to do is to tell it which graph that we would like it to plot into, And in this case, that is the X1. That is the main chart over here. That is the main chart. And then, of course, we need to provide the data. So that is the second argument. And then based on this interactive control, we can then decide which technical indicators or technical analysis that we would like to show in the graph. And at this point, we are going to show the moving average, exponential moving average, and also Bollinger Bands by default. And if you still remember the interactive control here, the initial status is true, true, true for all of them. So at the very beginnings, we would like to show the moving average, exponential moving average, and also Bollinger Bands. And then right after each of the status arguments, I also would like to give a control to what I would like to show in the plot. Say, for example, I would like to show a 10-period moving average or the 13 periods moving average. I can just change these parameters. And of course, similar to the moving average for the exponential moving average, just in case if you would like to show two moving average, you can just change it. And finally, for the Bollinger Bands, there are two parameters. One is in this list, one is the period, and the other is the standard deviations. So these 8 parameters or 8 arguments for these functions, along with these latest status, will allow us to control what we would like to show over the main chart. But before we leave these animate functions to create this compute plot TA, inside these animate functions, I would like to also write some code here to show these legends based on the based on the status for the technical indicators and also strategies. In that case, if any of these status is true, then I will show the legend. And here the legends is on the is with the exit 1, and then on the upper left, and the face color over here is a, let me show you, is a black color, and then font size 10, and then use this set key to get the texts with each of the legends. And of course, finally, I will use the font. I will use the font color is white. So you can see over here, this is the legends design. Therefore, it will base on the current status to decide whether or not the legend is going to show. Now we are ready to create the compute plot TA functions. And I will just put it over here to create that functions, that is compute plot TA functions. The first argument is the axis, and then for the show MA by default, I will just give it say false, and by default for the moving average, I will just give it a empty list, and for the show EMA by default, again it will be false, and another empty list by default. And finally for the Bollinger Band, Again, by default, that is false. And again, this is an empty list. Because we allow the users to provide different numbers for the moving average and also exponential moving average. So we cannot tell at the very beginnings how many colors that we need for the moving average and also the exponential moving average. And of course, for the Bollinger Band, it only needs one color. So we can fix that. However, for moving average and exponential moving average, we do not know at this point. So in that case, the first things that I would like to know is to check against the list to decide how many color that we need for the legends or for the moving average or exponential moving average. So I need a sum of the moving average and exponential moving average. If the sum is larger than 0, that means we need some color. Otherwise, I will just ignore this. And then in that case, we are going to use a gen color functions, which will allow us to generate color and based on the length or based on the number of moving average and exponential moving average. So in that case, the first, I will use this .get color methods. The first things that I need to assign is the color map, and let me show you later. And then the next argument is the total number of colors that we need. And in that case, I will create a color list, and which depends on how many moving average or exponential moving average that we have in this main chart. And the color map, let me show you, is this one. What we're going to use is the type 20. And there are many different color maps or color patterns. So please feel free to check in the matplotlib for the color map. And in my case, I'm going to use the type 20. And this is the color maps that I would like to use, and which will help me to generate the color according to the total number of moving average and exponential average. So what this gen color is doing here is to divide this tab 20 equally. In that case, it will pick the color according to the total number of moving average and exponential moving average. And say, for example, we have 4 color over here. This is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third, and this is the last one. And then according to the color map, it will help me to, just give me a second, and it will help me to pick up the first color, that is the blue over here, and then the last color over here, that is the pale blue, and then divide these equally to pick up the color in the middle for the 10 periods moving average and also for the 20 periods moving average. So that would be the pink, sorry, that would be the red, and then that would be the next one, that would be the pink over here. So it will end up divided by 4 because over the list we have 4 3 moving average and 1 exponential moving average that we would like to show. So it ends up this n is equals to 4. So now we have the color map. If we decide we're going to show the moving average, of course, we need to calculate the moving average. So there are two particular conditions that it need to fulfill before we compute the moving average. The first is that we need to check whether or not we would like to show the moving average. If that is true, and we also would like to check whether or not the user has defined what in what periods that they would like to show for the moving average. So at the very beginning, this is an empty list. So we need to make sure that the users has provided us the arguments before we calculate that. And inside this list, we will calculate the moving average for each of them. So we need to get a name for that. That is for the legends, and then string for the MA. And this name is for the legends. And then the second thing that we would like to do is, of course, calculate the moving average. And we're going to use the closing price to calculate that moving average, and that is the rolling dot mean. That is the moving average, and the arguments or the interval that we would like to pass it in is inside this list. And of course, finally, we would like to plot out the moving average. So the color here, we can use these color lists. And what I would like to do is to extract the first element inside this list. And then let me copy the rest. And that will, the arguments are the line style, a straight line, and then the line width, that is 1, and labels, that will be the string, that is the MA moving average, the periods for that particular moving average. So say this is a 5, and then it will just convert it to a string, and then for that particular label. And here, because we already used the first elements of that particular color, so what we're going to use is to use these pop methods to remove the first color. So just a quick corrections of myself, and for this name, that should be for the column name instead of the legends, because right here you can see that I use these as the legends, and then for this name, that should be the column names that I assign it back to the data frame. And that's it for the moving average. So if I just copy that and paste over here, I can just change it right away into the exponential moving average, and that is EMA, and this is EMA. Okay, so this one, that is for the EMA, except this one, I need to change it to the exponential weight moving methods instead of the rolling methods, because rolling method is just like the moving average. So here I just change it to using the exponential moving average. The spans arguments is EMA. That is just to determine and the window for that EMA. So that is for the first arguments, and it just equals to false, and then take the mean for this exponential weighted moving, and then use dot mean over here to take that average, and combine these and these, So I mean, combine these EWM and also dot means here, I can calculate the exponential moving FH. And finally, for the Bollinger Band, again, I need to check against the conditions before I do any calculations. And then for the Bollinger Bands, of course, user has to set it as true. And then for that particular length, I need it to be equals to 2, because there's 2 input parameters that we need to retrieve from the arguments or from the user. So the first argument is the window size, and that is 20, and the second argument, that is the standard deviations. So, and then what we can use is use the technical analysis functions Bollinger Band. And over here, the first argument that we need to provide is the data, and that is the closing price for that data. And then the length that we are going to use is use the first argument inside this list, and then the standard deviations that we would like to assign is the second argument in the list. And once we have this Bollinger Band, we can then plot out the line and also fill between the upper bound and also the lower bound. And the first things that I want to do is to use the fill between functions and their fill arguments. I will just copy and paste over here. And the first argument is the Bollinger, is the index from these Bollinger Bands. And then that is for the x-axis, and y, and that is for the x-axis. And then for the y-axis, we need to determine the upper bounds, and also we need to provide the lower bounds. And then the face color here, the face color that I want to fill, here we go, that is the pale purple, or dark, should be dark purple. Dark purpose, but then for the alpha, I just make it 20%. So the label is Bollinger Band. And once I fill it in, I can then use the plot to plot the line for the upper bound and also for the lower bound. And once again, I just pick up the lower bounds and upper bound for that. And then for the color, I will continue to use the dark purpose. However, this time I am not going to change the alpha. I will just give this a solid line with the line width 0.2. And finally, I will return the data just in case later on we would like to use these data frames to do any other stuff. Now, if I run the program, here are the results. And here we have the indicator, we have the legends. By default, all of them will be shown at the very beginning. And what if I click on the SMA, and then that will just disable this SMA and only show the EMA and also Bollinger Band. And what if I disable the EMA? And in that case, and it will only show the Bollinger Bands. And lastly, if I just disable the Bollinger Bands, and you can see that we will have the plain candlestick bar chart. And that's it for these lessons. In the next lessons, we will work on the strategies to see how we can use these interactive controls to plot out the strategies that we would like to apply. So see you in the next video. Bye bye.